Hello everyone, I welcome you all to Statecraft IS Academy. With this video, we launch a new lecture series called International Relations for Competitive Examinations, where we shall seek to attain fundamental understanding of the major issues pertaining to the topic of international relations. Okay, now with a quick analysis of the previous year questions that revolve around this topic of international relations, we arrive at 5 major themes that become very important for us. Firstly, the conflicts, crisis, and various other security issues. Okay, so this becomes very important. Secondly, the international and intergovernmental organizations and groupings. Okay, thirdly, the bilateral relationships, the trade relationships or multilateral relationships, etc., become important. Neighborhood policy also comes under this major theme. Then we have agreements, treaties, and various other economic partnerships that we can categorize as to the fourth theme. Then lastly, we talk about contemporary global issues. Say for example, questions pertaining to terrorism, environmental concerns, okay, or data and privacy related issues. All of these can be categorized as contemporary global issues. Okay, so how shall we proceed with this lecture series is that we shall pick up one major theme, okay, and we shall discuss all the major issues that are important under the said theme. Please remember here that our focus is on the major facts and on attaining a comprehensive understanding of the said issue rather than engaging in narratives and commentaries. Okay, so let us start off with the first major theme we have for discussion, and our first topic for discussion would be West Asia. Right, so West Asia is a region comprising 19 different countries, and why this region matters with respect to our examination is that, say, topics like international relations, global security, and current affairs analysis. Okay, in all of these things, West Asia becomes very important. If you open today's newspaper, you might see about 4 to 5 headlines talking about Israel-Palestine, Israel-Hamas conflicts, something happening in the Red Sea, etc. This is why this topic is of high exam relevance, and that is why it is important for us. Secondly, this conflict is multi-dimensional in nature. It has various proxy wars involved, there are non-state actors involvement, okay, there is also religious and ideological fault lines that are involved in this issue, and that is why it becomes multi-dimensional in nature. The conflicts are overlapping with respect to geography, trade, power rivalries, energy security, economics, etc. All of these things have global consequences, and they also affect the global order. Okay, so this is something very dynamic, it is something that is happening today, and it is of high relevance for us. Thirdly, we seek to attain an integrated understanding of this issue. There are multiple important subjects or allied issues, you can say, which can be associated with this topic. Say questions from geography, security studies, diplomatic relations, global power politics, all of this becomes very important. Okay, so to the students who are preparing for UPSC, PSI are optional as well. This topic is of high relevance. So while we begin with this topic, let us understand comprehensively as to why this region matters. Okay, and how is it important? You might already know now that there are multiple separate events that are happening here. There is the Israel-Palestine war, Hezbollah-Israel tensions that are happening in Lebanon, the Houthis are attacking the Red Sea, the Iran and Israel shadow war is happening on the other hand, there is instability in Syria, okay, and there are a lot of crises that keeps recurring in Iraq and Yemen, right? So with all of these things, they must not be regarded as isolated events, okay, rather they are manifestations of a single global geopolitical system. Okay, and hence we understand West Asia as the epicenter of global geopolitics. Why? Again, important maritime choke points. Be it the Bab el Mandeb Strait, the Suez Canal. Then we have the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, all of this becomes very important. Also, West Asia lies at the crossroads of three continents: Asia, Africa, and Europe. Okay, then it is very important for global energy security due to the large reserves of oil and gas. Also, ideological and religious concerns. Okay, the Shia versus the Sunnis, Islam versus Zionism, and in all of this, the non-state actors coming into the picture. We shall look at the concept later on. Okay, so because of these, we see that West Asia presents a very unique model of conflict. There is hybrid warfare also happening, and all of this manifests as the great power competition or great power rivalry. Okay, so with this consideration and with this understanding, we shall move ahead with this topic, right? But firstly, let us look at the previous year questions asked pertaining to this topic from various examinations. Okay, so this gives us an idea as to, as an aspirant, what are the things that I should be concerned about when I am looking at this topic. Let us look at the first question asked in UPSC Prelims 2015. The area known as Golan Heights sometimes appears in the news in the context of the events related to which region? We have Central Asia, Middle East, Southeast Asia and Central Africa, and the correct answer is Middle East. Right now, Israel controls this strategic high ground, which is very important in providing military advantage over Syria. Okay, after the 6-day war in 1967, Israel has occupied Golan Heights from Syria. Okay, it is an unresolved territorial dispute in the larger context of the Arab-Israel conflict. So we shall discuss that further. The next question that we have for discussion was asked again in UPSC Prelims 2018. Okay, so the term two-state solution is sometimes mentioned in the news in the context of the affairs of which of the following countries? China, Israel, Iraq and Yemen. The right answer is Israel. Okay, so this is about the Israel and Palestine issue, the two-state solution. So while I give you a quick overview of the Israel-Palestine issue, we will be looking at this one. Then the third question asked in UPSC Prelims 2023. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. Israel has established diplomatic relations with some Arab states. Statement 2. The Arab Peace Initiative mediated by Saudi Arabia was signed by Israel and Arab League. Okay. Now, which of the following is correct in respect of the above statements? Both statement 1 and 2 are correct and statement 2 is the correct explanation. Both are correct and statement is not the correct explanation. Statement 1 is correct but statement 2 is incorrect, and statement 1 is incorrect but statement 2 is correct. Okay, so here when we look at this, we see that Israel has established diplomatic relations with some Arab states. Yes, we have UAE, we have Bahrain, Morocco, etc. So this is correct. However, Arab Peace Initiative is not accepted by Israel. So the second statement is wrong and the right answer is option C. Look at the next question asked in Prelims 2024. The Red Sea receives very little precipitation in any form. No water enters the Red Sea from rivers. So this is purely geography related question. However, important because the Red Sea is always in the news. Right now the Houthis are attacking ships in the Red Sea. Again it is in the news. Okay, however, please see, in 2015 there was another question which asked the Mediterranean Sea does not open into which of the following seas. Okay, so I think the option was Caspian Sea at that time, right? So from such simple questions to more deeper questions, UPSC is changing its question form. Okay, so here the first statement is true. No water enters the Red Sea from rivers is also true. We do not see major rivers that flow into the Red Sea. Okay, so the correct option is both 1 and 2. The next question was asked in Bihar Public Service Commission exam of 2011. Alright, so which strait connects the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean? The answer is Bab el Mandeb Strait. Okay, so we have the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and the Indian Ocean, and here is where the Bab el Mandeb Straits connects all of these together. Now, this topic is important for us when we are going to discuss the issues, right, with respect to global trade, with respect to the oil routes, with respect to the Red Sea crisis and the Houthi attacks. Now, the last question that we have here is from Rajasthan Administrative Service exam 2013. So this is a match the following type of question that you can see here. Okay, so the Strait of Gibraltar connects Africa and Europe. So A is 1 and just a minute. Sorry, A is 3. So we have 3 in 2 options, B and C. So we can safely eliminate the other options. Okay, then we are left with option B and option C. So take the Strait of Hormuz that we're discussing here. Okay, so between the Gulf of Persia and Oman, so D2. As you can see, both the options B and C have D2 itself. Okay, so we are left with other matches, that is the Bering Strait is between America and Asia, so North America and Asia. So C is 4, which is option C. Okay, here the right answer is your option C. Okay, so here in a nutshell, what are we trying to understand here is that your traditional match the following kind of questions pertaining to geography and the seas and bordering nations. Okay, so something happening in the news can be interconnected with other allied subjects as well in your competitive examinations. Right, with that understanding, let us move to our topic now. So before delving into the various conflicts that we have for our discussion, let us understand the importance of West Asia for India, the various strategic imperatives that we have for consideration in front of us. Let us look at the strategic and geopolitical significance. India has good strategic relationship with Israel. On the other hand, it also has deep civilizational and economic ties with Iran as well as the Arab world. So what does India needs is a balancing act to balance the diverse actors involved in this region, which is also a key and a reflection of India's larger foreign policy doctrine of multi-alignment. Okay, so unlike the Cold War era bloc politics, India does not align with a single power camp, and instead it seeks to maintain constructive relations with all the major stakeholders in West Asia. Right, now key example of this would be the Chabahar port. Now the Chabahar port is the gateway to Afghanistan and Central Asia, right, bypassing Pakistan. Similarly, the INSTC International North-South Transport Corridor is crucial for India's connectivity with Eurasia and Europe. However, now both of these depend on regional stability, Very important for us with respect to regional connectivity and trade, but it requires regional stability. Okay. Another concern is that China's growing influence challenges India's strategic space, necessitating agile responses. Okay, so what does this mean? China's growing influence in West Asia poses an additional challenge for us, right? So through BRI, China has expanded its economic and diplomatic footprint across the region. So from, say, Saudi Arabia to Iran, China is positioning itself as a key power broker. Okay, so this is what forces India to respond with greater diplomatic agility and strategic foresight. Okay, next we move to energy security. This is another major reason why West Asia matters for India. Okay, West Asia supplies over 80% of India's crude oil imports. So disruption in this region makes India extremely vulnerable. Now, strategic choke points. We discussed the Strait of Hormuz, right? It is a strategic choke point which can trigger sharp increases in global oil prices. Now, rising oil prices has a lot of consequences for us. Okay, it might increase domestic inflation. It has the potential to weaken the rupee. Okay, it can also worsen the current account deficit. So on the fiscal scale as well, it is very important that there is security maintained in this region. Okay, so regional conflicts, yes, and high oil prices fuel domestic inflation and worsen India's current account deficit. Okay, then economic and trade importance. So West Asia lies at the heart of global maritime trade routes. It is very important. It has some important maritime choke points and lies at the heart of maritime trade routes. Okay. Now, the choke points that we discussed function as critical arteries of international commerce. The Houthi attacks on commercial shipping have demonstrated how vulnerable global trade routes are to regional conflicts. Okay, so instability would hinder the trade with key partners like Iran and Israel. All right, and on the other hand, elevated shipping costs reduce competitiveness for price-sensitive sectors, be it agriculture, electronics, or textiles. Okay, so it is directly going to impact India's economic performance. What is the larger picture here? Here for us to remember is that when we are connecting all of these things, right, strategy, energy, as well as trade, West Asia is not just a foreign policy priority for India, but it is also a structural pillar of the nation's security as well as economic stability. Okay, and that is why understanding West Asia is essential not only for international relations but also for understanding India's position in the emerging global order as well. Right? We move on to the next slide. Other important things for us to consider is the diaspora as well as the remittances. So, about 9 million Indians live and work in the Gulf countries, contributing significantly to India's economy through remittances. Okay, in the recent years, India has received over $100 billion annually in remittances alone, with a major share coming in from the Gulf region. So why is it important is because these remittances are the one that support India's foreign exchange reserves, household incomes and economic stability. Okay, so events like the Gulf Wars, the Arab Spring, Israel-Hamas, etc. have repeatedly forced India to conduct large-scale evacuation operations. Right? So this is one dimension that we must remember. Then talking about national security and maritime interests. Right? The Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea, all of these are vital choke points for global energy and trade, where nearly we have about 60% of India's crude oil imports that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. Now, any disruption here is going to affect the energy supply, the trade flows, as well as our national security. Okay. So, West Asian security is a core component of India's Indo-Pacific strategy. Then we discuss economic stability and growth. So West Asian conflicts have a direct impact on our macroeconomic stability. High oil prices increase domestic inflation and hinder our economic growth. Okay, so regional conflicts create global economic uncertainty, impacting India's investment and trade prospects. A mere $10 increase in crude oil prices can significantly widen India's current account deficit and weaken the rupee. Okay, further, all of these are going to affect our foreign investment, trade, and larger growth prospects. Okay, so West Asia acts as a transmission belt. It absorbs geopolitical shocks. Okay, if this absorption doesn't happen, this will result into economic crisis. Lastly, we discuss the diplomatic and soft power role. So India maintains strong ties with several nations like Israel, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and other Gulf states. Okay, so this diplomatic balancing is something that enhances India's credibility as a neutral and stabilizing actor. Okay, it plays the role of regional stabilizing force and enhances its global diplomatic stature. Okay, an active involvement in cultural and economic engagement reinforces India's soft power, and it fosters influence as well as goodwill in the region. Let us start off now with the core issue that we want to focus on, which is the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now, the Israel-Palestine conflicts date back to the times of the Ottoman Empire. After the fall of the Ottoman Empire, at that time, the Jewish minority was a very small minority. Okay, after World War I, Britain passes the Balfour Declaration in 1917, promising support and establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. This creates the fundamental contradiction and the roots of the conflict when in 1947 the UN proposes a partition plan for the Arab state as well as Israel. Now, Israel accepts it and the Arab leadership rejects this. In 1948, Israel declares its independence and the neighboring Arab states attack Israel. However, Israel emerges victorious, but this leads to the displacement of about 7 lakh Palestinians, which they call as the Nakba or the catastrophe in Arabic. So, the issue becomes permanent from this point onwards. Okay. After this, there were several wars that took place, and the 1967 Six-Day War in particular led to the escalation of this conflict, where Israel came to occupy several of the territories like the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, and East Jerusalem. If you look at the map here, we see the location of Gaza, okay, the Golan Heights, the bordering sea, Egypt, Israel, Syria, the West Bank bordering Jordan, and the Dead Sea. So, the core contention is about the final borders and land swaps. Palestinians demand a sovereign state based on pre-1967 boundaries. The second issue here is of the right of return and citizenship. The problem of refugees is central here. And the third issue is that of sovereignty, statehood and self-determination. So in the recent phase, what has happened here is that there are a lot of conflicts with Hamas. Hamas is a Palestinian Islamist militant organization which was founded in 1987. So Hamas controls and governs the Gaza Strip and represents an armed resistance against Israel. Its objective is to end Israeli occupation here. And what is Israel doing in return is that it is causing a blockade within the region and controls what goes inside and what goes out of Gaza. Okay, so apart from Hamas, there are heavy Israeli military response that is happening in the region, leading to massive civilian casualties, and all of these conflicts have spillover effects to various other regions like in Lebanon, the Red Sea, where we have the Houthi rebels. We shall discuss all of this. There is also a shadow war or a proxy conflict between Iran and Israel. Okay, and like we know, Hamas conflict is another major issue here. So please note Hamas, Nakba, which means the catastrophe, the two-state solution. Okay, so this was a previous year MCQ UPSC question. This two-state solution is in response to what? It is the Israel and Palestine issue. Then we have the Oslo Accords. So what are these? This was a peace mechanism 1993 to 95, where the first major peace agreements between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization was made. However, this was a failed attempt, nevertheless one of the important attempts. Okay. Then we have the 20-point peace plan right now, which is being proposed by Donald Trump. Okay. So these are the major issues that we discuss in relation to Israel-Palestine issue. Here, one fundamental international relation concept to note is asymmetric conflict or asymmetric warfare. What does it mean? Asymmetric conflict or asymmetric warfare refers to a conflict between unequal actors, like that of the Israel-Palestine issue. Okay, now if you look at Israel here, it is stronger as compared to Palestine because Israel has modern military, advanced technology, intelligence and support from stronger economies like the US. However, the Palestinian groups rely mostly on their own rockets or guerrilla warfare and civilian environments, etc. Israel is using precision strikes and advanced defense systems, but however, Palestinian groups lack these, and this is why this is called an asymmetric conflict. Let us now look at the map of West Asia as well as Israel and try to identify some important geographical locations. So let us start off with the seas here. So we have the Mediterranean Sea, okay, which borders five major countries. Okay, what are those? Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Turkey and Egypt. Okay, then we have the Red Sea. It also borders the Cyprus island as well. Okay. Then we have the Red Sea. As you can see in the map, it borders Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Yemen and Saudi Arabia. Again, Red Sea also borders 5 countries. Then we have the Arabian Sea touching Oman, Yemen, Pakistan, India, okay, and also Somalia as well, so yes, Somalia. So looking at the map, kindly identify the location because sometimes the questions will not be direct, okay. So having an idea of the location precisely on the map helps us to solve the MCQs. The other major locations that we need to keep in mind here is the Persian Gulf. So please note these locations. The Gulf of Oman. Major rivers flowing here, okay. The Jordan River, Tigris, which flows to Turkey and Iraq. Then we have the Euphrates, Nile River, which flows through Egypt, okay. And in recent days we have the river called Litani, which is in news. This is a river which completely flows within Lebanon, okay. So this is another important river based on the events that are happening in news. Apart from that, we need to have major borders of the places in conflict, okay. So which are the bordering nations of Iran, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan. All of these things also must be kept in mind when we are discussing the map. Now we saw that the spillover effects of the Israel-Palestine conflict also relates to the crisis in the Gaza Strip as well as crisis in Red Sea and Yemen, okay. So let us look at this more deeply. Now, if you look at the map here, we see that Gaza is a region which is densely populated, number one, okay. It borders Israel, Egypt and the Mediterranean Sea in the west. Now, Gaza being one of the most densely populated regions in the world, this is controlled by Hamas, who we already discussed is a Palestinian Islamist political and armed group, which came to power in Gaza in 2007, okay. Why is Gaza in conflict is because Israel controls the land crossings, the airspace as well as sea access. On the other hand, Egypt controls the Rafah border, essentially causing a blockade. So when Hamas attacks Israel, the Israel-Hamas conflict, right? So when Hamas attacks Israel, Israel responds with military operations in Gaza. Okay, so because Gaza is heavily crowded, fighting causes large civilian damage in Gaza, leading to one of the worst humanitarian crises that the world is witnessing. Now, Yemen is already having a lot of instability due to the civil war within Yemen. Here, the problem is of the Houthi rebels who are attacking the ships in the Red Sea. The Houthis are targeting Israel and form a very important aspect of the axis of resistance which is dominated by Iran. Alright, so in the big picture, Gaza conflict is not just a local war, but it is transforming itself into a very large humanitarian crisis and a regional conflict. So Hamas, Israel, Houthis, Iran, US and the allies, all of these are the various actors who are involved here. Okay, so Hamas, just a minute. So we have Hamas fighting in the Gaza. We have Israel fighting the Hamas. The Houthis attacking Israeli ships. We have Iran, which is supporting anti-Israel groups. And then we have the US and its allies who are trying to protect the shipping routes. So this is the larger regional conflict that is happening here. This is a spillover effect of the broader Israel-Palestine issue that we have discussed. Let us delve a little more deeper. So here we have an important strait, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. So it is located between Yemen and Djibouti. Okay, located between Yemen and Djibouti here. All right, it connects the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden and the Indian Ocean. All right, now what is happening here is that why is this strait strategically important and is a maritime choke point is because around 12 to 15% of global trade passes through this small strait. Okay, it is a key route for oil shipments from the Middle East to Europe. So whoever is in control of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait can disrupt global trade, and the Houthis, which we spoke about, are attacking ships here. Alright, now Djibouti is important because China has a military base here. The US and the allies are patrolling this region, so we have multiple stakeholders involved here and there is great power rivalry around the region. That is why it becomes strategically important. Now, if we speak about the Red Sea, let us focus on the borders. To the west, the bordering countries of the Red Sea would be Egypt, Sudan and Eritrea, right? To the west. To the east, we have Saudi Arabia and Yemen. To the north is the Suez Canal. And to the south is the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Okay, so that is Red Sea for you. Again, conflicts here leads to the increase of shipping costs and oil prices increase, etc. Global inflation levels can also increase if there is conflicts in the region. Okay, then we have the Gulf of Aden. Now, why is this important? Again, it connects the Red Sea to the Arabian Sea and a hot spot of piracy. Okay, we have Somalia located here, so a lot of piracy issue, terrorism issues, and is a region for proxy wars as well. We also have the ISIS and Al-Qaeda presence in the region. Okay, so it is an example of global security threat and how weak states can create such threats to global security. Alright, then we have the Suez Canal. Now, please note the location on the map. It connects the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. Again, very important choke point. If Suez Canal is blocked, global trade collapses because about 12% of 12% of global trade passes through this region. Around 30% of global container traffic passes through this region. Okay, so the Houthi movement, it is aligned with Iran's axis of resistance. We've already discussed this one. It is a Shia rebel group in Yemen. Okay, it is supported by Iran. And now when we talk about the axis of resistance, right? So what is this? When we talk about the axis of resistance, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and the Shia militias, all in Iraq and Syria, etc. All of them form the axis of resistance. Then we have the INSTC, that is the International North-South Transport Corridor. Now this acts as an alternate to the maritime choke points within this West Asian region. Okay, so it passes through India, Iran, the Caspian Sea, Russia and Europe. This reduces dependence on Suez Canal and Red Sea routes, and it also counters China's Belt and Road Initiative. Right? It is India's geopolitical response to West Asian instability. Okay. Then we have for discussion the Strait of Hormuz, which connects the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. Around 20% of global trade passes through this region, and it is Iran's biggest geopolitical weapon because in case Iran blocks Hormuz, the oil prices shall skyrocket and global economy suffers. So, it is a very important energy security choke point. Let us now look at the Hezbollah tensions, which escalated in the aftermath of Israel and Gaza conflict. Okay, so this is a non-state armed organization which rose in the 1980s with Iranian support to resist Israeli occupation. Now, it controls Lebanon, specifically the southern Lebanon, which has close proximity to Israel as well as the Mediterranean Sea. Mediterranean Sea again is very important for commercial shipping, naval movement and energy related activity. So that is why Hezbollah tries to contain this particular area. So the regional instability within Lebanon and constant conflict in the region has enabled the rise of the non-state actor called Hezbollah. Okay. Now, why is this important with respect to the West Asian conflicts is because it is used as a proxy war instrument and a key tool of Iran in the Iran-Israel rivalry, and it part of the axis of resistance. Okay, this we have discussed before. It also leads to the regionalization of Israel-Palestine conflict, where the conflict expands beyond Gaza and Lebanon and creates a multi-front threat for Israel. The challenge of non-traditional kind of conflict. We discussed how the conflicts here are very unique due to the engagement of non-state actors. So this is one such case. This geostrategic location, a permanent border flashpoint because of its proximity to Mediterranean Sea as well as Israel. Okay. So now the fundamental international relations concept for us to note here is non-state actor, which means traditionally international relations were dominated by states, right? These were referred to as actors. But today, many powerful actors who are the ones who are changing the rules of the game are not states alone. There are also non-state actors, which is not a recognized sovereign state. It can be an entity or an organization or an association or an authority which is not a recognized sovereign state, yet it influences international politics, security, or economics. These are called as non-state actors. So examples include organizations, armed organizations like Hezbollah, be it the ISIS, the Al Qaeda, the Hamas, or even our MNCs or international organizations, some really strong, powerful NGOs, etc. Okay, so these are referred to as non-state actors. Then we move on to the Iran-Israel shadow war. So what is a shadow war? It is an indirect multi-domain conflict characterized by proxy operations rather than direct military confrontation. This leads us to the fundamental international relations concept of proxy war. What does proxy war mean? It means an indirect conflict in which states pursue their strategic objectives by supporting allied actions or non-state groups in other countries. So they directly do not engage in conflicts, but they support whatever they want, their interests, through other proxy groups, right? So Iran utilizes its axis of resistance, that is, it supports Hezbollah in Lebanon, right? Hamas in the Gaza, as well as Houthis in Yemen. With this, it attacks Israeli or US targets, while Israel employs superior air power and targeted strikes on Iranian personnel and nuclear sites. So, deep ideological divides between the two nations, the competition for regional influence, and fears of a nuclear Iran drive this conflict. Okay, so post 1979, Israel targets Iran interest, and the conflict has escalated and prevails to this day. Lastly, we discuss the Syria and Israel dimension of the conflicts in West Asia. Primarily, this is an old conflict when Syria opposed the creation of Israel. So in 1967 Six-Day War, Israel comes to capture the Golan Heights, and this leads to the escalation of conflicts. Now Golan Heights, again, which is under Israeli occupation, is strategically important for its elevation and tactical military advantage, which we have already discussed. Okay, now let us look at some points relating to this. Firstly, Syria is used as a proxy battleground. That is, it is a key front in the Iran-Israel rivalry, with Iranian forces and Hezbollah operating within its territory. Secondly, the Golan Heights factor, right? Israeli occupation of the Golan Heights since 1967 remains a core strategic and territorial dispute shaping bilateral hostility. Okay, it acts as a natural defense buffer, and hence it is very important as to who has the power of these Golan Heights. Then the post-Assad power vacuum. The collapse of the Assad regime in 2024 created political instability in the region, enabling external actors to reshape Syria's strategic landscape. Then we have the Israeli security doctrine, where Israel seeks to establish buffer zones in southern Syria to prevent Iranian entrenchment and jihadist expansion near its borders. Okay. The axis of resistance corridor, where Syria functions as a critical transit route for Iranian weapons and logistics to Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Druze linkages, that is, the cross-border ethnic and social ties of the Druze community, add a complex humanitarian and security dimension to the conflict. Okay, now this is a population that lives across Syria, Israel, and Lebanon, right? They share cross-border social and ethnic ties, which blur the line between domestic and external conflicts. So that is the complexity here, right? Then we have the regional spillover effect. What do we mean by that? The Syria-Israel front is interconnected with Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq, intensifying the broader West Asian conflict. So direct wars are increasingly being replaced by proxy conflicts, indirect strikes, and strategic positioning as well. Okay, it also it is something that is demonstrating a broader pattern of modern warfare. All right, then it reflects the shift from direct wars to proxy conflicts with global powers which reshape the region. So the global power equations are being reshaped by the conflicts that are happening here. Okay. So before we begin the practice questions, I want to mention a few peace mechanisms or initiatives that were undertaken in the context of the conflicts in West Asia. Okay. So the first one that is important for us to note in the context of our examinations are the UNSC Resolution 1701, which was adopted in 2006. Okay. So this UN Security Council resolution was adopted to end the Israel-Hezbollah conflict in Lebanon and specifically in southern Lebanon. Okay, so it called for the cessation of all hostilities and also the deployment of Lebanese army in southern Lebanon. All right. Along with this, the area between the Litani River. Now, this river has been frequently mentioned in the news. So this river as well as Israel border were to be free of any non-state armed groups. Okay, so in the context of UN peacekeeping mandates, the non-state armed groups, etc., it is very important for us to note this resolution. Okay. Secondly, the Abraham Accords are important for your examination. So these were adopted in 2020. Okay. Now, these were a set of agreements for normalization of diplomatic relations with Israel. Right. The important players or the countries which were involved in this were UAE and Bahrain, and this was brokered by the USA. Alright, then later Sudan and Morocco also joined these agreements. Okay, then we have the I2U2 initiative that has to be noted in this context, which was adopted in 2022. This is a minilateral, something like Quad, right, with India, Israel, UAE as well as USA. Okay, so the focus here is on food security, energy, technology, infrastructure, etc. On the whole, economic and development cooperation. Okay, so this is what this initiative seeks. Then fourthly, we have IMEC, that is India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Right, this was adopted in 2023 in the G20 summit held in New Delhi. Okay, so this is a multimodal connectivity and trade corridor which connects India, Middle East and Europe. Right, this is important because it acts as an alternative to China's BRI. So this is another important initiative for us to note. Then lastly, Operation Prosperity Guardian. This was launched in 2023 and it is being led by the USA. So this is a multinational naval security operation. Alright, it protects commercial shipping. So basically, in the aftermath of the Houthi attacks on vessels in the Red Sea, this initiative was launched. So the areas around Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Gulf of Aden, etc., all of these are sought to be protected. Okay. Let us now begin with the practice questions. So the first question that we have for discussion: with reference to the geography of Israel-Palestinian region, consider the following statements. The Gaza Strip has a coastline along the Mediterranean Sea. Okay. The West Bank is located to the east of Jordan River. The Jordan River forms part of the boundary between Israel and Jordan. Now, if you recollect the map, or I would suggest pause the video and go back and see the map. Okay. So basically, the Gaza Strip lies on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea is correct. To the north, we have Israel. To the south, we have Egypt. And to the west is the Mediterranean Sea. Alright. So this is the correct option. Then, the West Bank is located to the east of the Jordan River. So, remember that West Bank, the name comes from it being to the west of the Jordan River, right? So this is the wrong option. It lies to the west of Jordan River, right? So when we have 2 as wrong, we eliminate these. So we have 1 in both the options A and C. Nevertheless, we have to check for option 3. So the Jordan River forms part of the boundary between Israel and Jordan, right? So this is correct. It separates Israel, which is on the west, and Jordan, which is on the east. Okay, so this again is the correct answer, and the right option, we arrive at option A. Okay, then let us look at the second question. Which of the following countries share a land boundary with Israel? Okay, so we have Egypt. So it bordering via the Sinai Peninsula. Egypt does border Israel, so this is correct. Jordan also, yes. Lebanon is also correct. Saudi Arabia, however, does not share a land border with Israel, so this is the wrong option. So the correct option we arrive at is option A, 1, 2 and 3 only. Okay, right. Then we move to the next set of questions. The Litani River, often mentioned in the context of Hezbollah-Israel conflict, flows entirely within. So the right option here is Lebanon. I discussed UN resolution before, right? The UNSC resolution 1701. So the Litani River is one of the main points or one of the key reference points in this resolution. Okay, it has been mentioned in the news several times. So it flows entirely within Lebanon. Alright, then the term blue line, frequently mentioned in the news related to Hezbollah-Israel tension, refers to what? Okay, now the term blue line is a UN identified withdrawal line. Sometimes the trap is that whenever something related to blue, we consider it to be a maritime boundary or something related to the seas or the oceans. However, please be clear, it is the UN identified withdrawal line to confirm Israeli pullback from southern Lebanon. Okay. With reference to Yemen, consider the following statements. Okay, let us look at the next question. Yemen is located at the southern end of the Arabian Peninsula. Yes, it is located at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula and is a strategic location near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Okay, then Yemen shares the land boundary with Saudi Arabia and Oman. This is also correct. It has Saudi Arabia in the north and Oman in the east. Okay, then Yemen has a coastline along both the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea. Okay, so Red Sea forms the west coast here and the Arabian Sea forms the south coast. Okay, so this is also correct. With that, the right option we arrive at is option D. Okay, so these were some questions that can be asked. These are the ways in which the questions can be framed for your competitive examinations. With this, I end this session and I hope that the session has been fruitful. Okay, so if you have any suggestions or if you would like more information to be added in further lectures, I would request you to kindly put it in the comment box so that we take it forward. Right, I thank you all for being a part of this lecture series, and we shall meet again with another one. Thank you.